Well, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you might be watching from, and welcome to Seattle. The Cleveland Browns are on the road looking for a third consecutive win. They are on the road to take on the Seattle Seahawks, where they have not won since 1989. It's been a long time since Cleveland has come up to the Pacific Northwest and come home with a smile on its face. Maybe today will be a good day. I'm Brendan Gulick along with Anthony Moeglin. Welcome to our coverage on BrownsDigest. And Anthony, this is an interesting matchup because you've got a couple of different 4-2 teams that certainly haven't played perfect football this year, but have had a lot of success and in some different ways. And I think they're both teams trying to make a statement that, hey, we should be considered truly one of the best teams in the NFL, and maybe a win over a quality opponent like that would further that case.
Yeah, it almost feels like these are two very, very similar teams in how they attack each of their games, how they've played so far, and really what they do well. Both of these defenses have been playing very, very good football, and both of these offenses go through the run game. You're going to see this may be as for last week, that a game that lasted 4.5 hours. It felt like this week feels like it could be a little bit quicker because there's going to be a lot of runs. You're going to see Kenneth Walker III for the Seattle Seahawks get a lot of action, and whoever may be running for the Cleveland Browns, whether it is Jerome Ford if he's able to come back from that injury from last week, or if it's a combination of Pierre Strong and Kareem Hunt, those guys are going to get a lot of action. And it almost feels, Brendan, that the winner of the line of scrimmage today is going to have an advantage here this afternoon to come away with a critical win for either side, however this one shakes out.
Yeah, and I love both defensive lines. I think whichever defensive line makes a bigger impact today, in my opinion, is going to have a really strong case as far as trying to win the game overall. Look, you brought up Jerome Ford's name, and that's kind of the news of the last 12 to 15 hours here. ESPN's Adam Schefter, the first to report on it, but the Browns are pretty optimistic. Still questionable the status officially for Jerome Ford, but that high ankle sprain seems to be better than maybe what the Browns had expected it would be at this point. Jerome practiced on Friday, and when we had a chance to watch practice, basically where we're allowed to stand as media, the running backs do some individual drills literally feet in front of us, and had a really good chance to see him go through some different ladder drills. It wasn't full contact, it wasn't big team stuff, etc. But you could get a feel for whether or not a guy who's got a bad ankle or a good ankle can go through some of these drills. And I thought Jerome looked pretty light on his feet, really explosive. The ankle wasn't taped up like crazy. It seems as though he is healing well. So that's my own personal take on it. The Browns are obviously still listing him as questionable. They want to see how he warms up today, but I get the impression that Jerome Ford is going to try to play today, which is huge for Cleveland. If you look at this Browns rushing attack, Anthony, obviously the first 2 weeks were terrific. Weeks 3 and 4, not good. Had a bye week, a chance to address some of that. Obviously been dealing with some health concerns as a running back room in general. But the last 2 weeks they've run the ball pretty well, and I know that's definitely part of the game plan today with PJ Walker starting again.
No question, and it has to be, right? And it's rarely do you see teams have success when they lose their starting running back or their starting quarterback. But when you lose both of them, you never see teams have success. So it's really a testament to what this team's been able to do over the past couple of weeks without Nick Chubb and without Deshaun Watson, because as a defensive coordinator, potentially, when you're thinking, hey, we can just focus on the run game, makes it really, really challenging when you have a quarterback like PJ Walker, who has struggled, to be frank, the past couple of weeks. But the Browns have been able to grind out wins, obviously thanks in large part to Myles Garrett and that defense. But regardless of all of that, they're 4-2, and they have a good opportunity today, as 3.5-point dogs to steal one. Frankly, go into Seattle and steal what could be a huge win. And to do that, they're going to have to, whoever's in the backfield is going to have a really good day.
It's interesting, the perspective on the Browns right now, because it sort of depends on how you choose to look at it, your thoughts and feelings about this team. The reality is they're 4-2, and the defense has played terrific. It's one of the best defensive starts through 6 games or 7 weeks, depending on how you want to look at it, in franchise history. And, they have absolutely lived up to the hype on that side of the ball. Yeah, not a great game last week in several metrics for sure, but they did force a bunch of turnovers last week, most of the season. And so, there is reason to have some faith, continued in that group for sure. On the offensive side, obviously a ton of question marks around Deshaun Watson's health and when he will return. In the meantime, P.J. Walker, who is on the practice squad at the outset, elevated onto the active roster the last couple of weeks, and he's been needed heavily. And he's gone out and he's beaten the San Francisco 49ers. And yes, maybe there were a couple of calls that went the Browns' way last week, but P.J. helped guide a game-winning drive down the field again. So I know there's confidence in this locker room in Walker going out and being a pro and going out and doing his job. It takes more than one guy for sure, but it's been interesting to absorb from fans some of the reaction or the feeling around this team, because there's some disappointment with being 4-2, and I think people are just looking for a reason to complain. The reality is, Anthony, this is tied for the best start since the team came back in '99 with the 2020 and with the 2001 team. So enjoy being 4-2 and recognize there's a lot of really good pieces here.
Yeah, I think it goes to the point of what's going on in the AFC North. Like 4-2 is the best start in, our recent franchise history. And think of the years past, I think back to a couple of years ago, Browns start 4-1 and getting off and rolling. They're off top of the AFC North. Everything's looking good. But with the way the North is really shaped out and how it's starting to look, with Baltimore playing really good football and Pittsburgh coming up each and every week with different ways to steal and find wins. And, the Bengals potentially at 3-3 in the cellar, a lot of people are saying that they have the best opportunity to make a run and make a deep run. So it's like we're 4-2, and you look back and you're like, holy cow, that we should be a first place team, but we're not, and there's still a little bit of mountain to climb. With that said, if the playoffs started today or tomorrow, the Browns are in it, and the Browns are still going to be a really tough team to beat. And as we kind of close the book on October, you start seeing some of these offenses and some of these defenses starting to fall apart, right? You get 7 weeks in, the weather starts to change, and that's when you talk about offenses and defenses being able to travel. Well, what the Browns are doing is football that travels, and football that can go into bad weather and can go across the country, and it can grind out wins. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited for P.J. Walker today because, for the first time, it feels like, they announced it on Monday that he was going to be the starter, and it hasn't been a week-long thing of is it going to be PJ? Is it going to be Deshaun? And this is his third start. So I'm excited to see the steps that he's able to take. He's done enough to this point to get wins, but now that he's had a full week of preparation, full week of knowing it's me and I'm starting and I'm playing and I have to play well, I'm excited to see what he puts out on the field this afternoon.
Totally agree. There really hasn't been that distraction this week, which is awesome because I think it's helped. The team has certainly been focused, but it's allowed P.J. Walker to prepare knowing what's coming, not, hey, I think I have to be ready, because you never know what can happen. And to your point, the Browns are definitely playing the kind of football that travels. If you run the ball well, typically that travels. Defense effort always travels. Sometimes it might be difficult to get your aerial attack going when you're on the road, but you can always play tough, physical, downhill, aggressive football on the road, and that's kind of been the Browns, recipe for success here in 2023. A couple notes that I think are maybe the stats of the day or notes of the day. The Browns are 13-2 in their last 15 games when they don't turn it over. So in an environment like this, where it's going to be really, really loud, if you can take care of the football, you're going to give yourself a really good chance. And on top of that, they are 16-5 since 2020 when scoring at least 25 points in a game. And I think 25 points is certainly attainable. I don't know that I think the Browns are going to offensively do what they did last week in Indianapolis, but 25 points certainly seems attainable for me here on the road today.
Yeah, and to the first point about the turnovers, it's amazing that the Browns, if you just look at the turnover battle, they're 1-5 this year, just in not winning the turnover battle. When you don't win the turnover battle, it makes it exponentially harder to win football games. If they can just go in there today play just a clean game, like no interceptions, no fumbles, no turnovers. You're going to be in it because even think about look where you're at. This is the loudest stadium in the NFL. And if you start turning the ball over, it's going to give that crowd a little bit of gas and it's going to start juicing them up and it's going to be loud and rocking. And, just don't turn the ball over, play a clean game, play a boring game. That's totally fine. Just come out with more points in Seattle here at about 7:00 Eastern time.
Boring is a great way to think about it. I know, that's not fun, but go play boring football sometimes, and that can be really, really effective. Run the ball, be effective. Don't miss tackles. Just play tough, physical football. And I think Cleveland is geared up for a game like this. This is an incredibly cool environment that many of the Browns have not been in before. Some have been. Cleveland obviously hasn't come to Seattle with much regularity. This is not a matchup that you see, in the grand scheme of things, played all that often. In fact, the last time the Browns beat the Seahawks was 12 years ago in 2011, but they've only lost 2 games in that 11 years since then. And Cleveland's kind of embracing right now the idea of playing on the road. This is their the second of 5 road games in a 7-game stretch. And I think they're looking forward to seeing what kind of football they can play on an absolutely perfect fall day here in Seattle. I say perfect because it's good football weather. It's cold right now. It should get up to maybe 50 degrees in the afternoon. It's kind of hard to tell with the way we're set up. There is not even a lick of a cloud in the sky. Driving from the hotel to the stadium this morning as the sun was rising over the mountains in the distance, you could see the mountains were illuminated, but everything else was still in the shadows. It was the most beautiful autumn morning here in the Pacific Northwest that you can think of. And if you look at the forecast coming up starting on Tuesday this week, this is the last good weather that Seattle's going to have probably forever. So the Browns got here at the right time. Come play a tough football game and have some fun.
I love it. Yeah, as you described that, I couldn't be more jealous. We got gray, rain, and wind here in Cleveland, so you're not missing much. You're not missing much back home, but I'm jealous of you out there. It looks like a gorgeous day and a beautiful day to play some football. And Brennan, to move to 5-2. Let's move to 5-2 today and take another step in the AFC North.
See if the Browns can get it done. Lots of fun storylines to follow with PJ Walker, with Geno Smith, and the offense that Seattle will bring out on the field, including some really talented receivers. It sounds like DK Metcalf is going to try to play. Jackson Smith and Jigba. If you're watching and you're an Ohio State fan, you're going to see one of the all-time great Buckeye receivers playing in the slot today. Ty Lockett. Obviously, Kenneth Walker is a really talented running back. This is a good Seattle Seahawks offense, in addition to the fact that Bobby Wagner's been playing football for a million years defensively, and they got some really good players up on the defensive front. We got you covered wire to wire all day here in Seattle. It's over on BrownsDigest.com, and if you would subscribe to this YouTube channel, we certainly would appreciate that as we bring you coverage like this just about every single day. For Anthony Moeglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. Have a great day. Enjoy the Cleveland Browns and Seattle Seahawks kicking off here in a couple of hours from Lumen Field, and we hope you'll follow us with Browns Digest.